News, weather, traffic, and community events. Ryan and Lisa, mornings on CFAX 1070.
As you've been hearing in the news, the death toll from two powerful earthquakes in Venezuela has risen to 589, with nearly 3,000 others injured, and as many as 25,000 people are still unaccounted for. And in an update today, the Venezuelan president said rescue crews from around the world are arriving in the nation to help out. And Canada, we're providing $5 million in humanitarian aid to support emergency relief efforts following these quakes, 7.2 and 7.5 magnitude quakes that happened Wednesday night. To find out more about the quakes and how it played out in Venezuela and maybe what we can learn here in Victoria, another place that's prone to earthquakes, we've got on the line with us our regular earthquake guest, John Cassidy, seismologist with Natural Resources Canada, based up in Sydney. Sir, how you doing?
I'm doing well, thanks, Ryan. How are you?
I'm doing all right, and I'm sure doing what you do, you're following what's happening in Venezuela closely. Tell us about what happened from your perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. Two very large and sadly very devastating earthquakes in Venezuela, and they were very close to Caracas. So that's the combination of a large earthquake close to an urban area. The 7.5 earthquake started about 170 kilometers from Caracas, but it was such a large earthquake, it ruptured a fault towards that city, and it basically came up to the doorstep of Caracas. So this very strong shaking in that city built on a basin of soft sediments. So it was the largest earthquake in that region in more than a century since the year 1900. So large earthquake very close to a densely populated region.
Right. So there's a lot of factors there combining to make this such a tragedy. And one of the things you just said was interesting, the soft sediments, because I know here in Victoria, we've got a lot of rock. They've got, I'm looking at some of the images out of Venezuela and some of the buildings that look like they've sunk into the ground partially or, have really toppled over. Is that because of this, the nature of the ground that those things were built on? Or talk about what happened there.
Yeah, that's a good question. It is a combination of the building type and age, but the soil conditions play a really important role, and we've seen that in earthquakes around the world. Here in Victoria, we have a lot of hard rock. We have little pockets of soft soil. A little bit different there in that it's a much larger basin of soft sediments, but that's something that certainly geotechnical engineers will be looking at really closely, the role of liquefaction, where soils can lose their strength during strong shaking under certain conditions. And so looking at the liquefaction, the role of liquefaction, the role of the sediments in amplifying shaking and interacting with the buildings. So certainly, a lot of people will be looking at this very closely to learn what happened and what controlled the damage in that region.
Now, as you look at this quake or series of quakes in Venezuela, what are you thinking about for here? Is this anything does it bring up any reminders of us here in our earthquake zone?
It really does, Ryan. This was the largest earthquake there since the year 1900. So although there have been smaller earthquakes on a very regular basis throughout Venezuela and northern Venezuela near this event. But here on Vancouver Island, we've had a magnitude 7 earthquake back in 1918 north of Tofino, and we've had a 7.3 on the center of the island near Courtenay, Port Alberni, back in 1946. So we've had very large earthquakes here on Vancouver Island. It's easy to forget about those large earthquakes when they don't happen very often. We have small earthquakes here each and every day. We have earthquakes that we can feel typically a few times every year, but it's sort of easy to forget that we live in an active earthquake zone. The tectonic plates here are moving at 4 or 5 centimeters per year just off of our coast, roughly the speed that your fingernails grow, which isn't very fast, but over a lifetime that represents 4 or 5 meters of movement. So it's a reminder that places where you don't experience large earthquakes very often, they still happen, and knowing what to do is really important. Having a plan, being prepared, knowing to drop cover and hold on when you start to feel shaking, and we have tools. We have really important tools here that will help protect us. The building codes that are updated every 5 years, and the earthquake science and engineering that feeds into those codes, and we now have earthquake early warning as well. Here in British Columbia. So that also is another important way to protect ourselves. It will provide seconds or tens of seconds of warning before strong shaking arrives in most cases. So we have a lot of tools, but being prepared and knowing what to do and knowing that we live in an earthquake zone is really important. So, a lot of great information on local websites, Shakeout BC, the Prepare Yourself CRD site is really good, and Prepared BC has great information. So there's
good places. Good places to check right now if Venezuela's got you thinking. Yeah, John Cassidy, got to let you go, but seismologist with Natural Resources Canada. Always, it's a pleasure to talk earthquakes with you. Although sometimes it's sad circumstances like what we're seeing today. So, but thank you for joining us. I do appreciate it.
Most welcome. Thanks, Ryan.
And I'll just mention, too, that the Venezuelan Canadian Society of BC is working to coordinate a fundraising locally. The Our Lady of Fatima Church is hosting a Spanish-language prayer for Venezuela on Sunday. If you're interested, that's going to be happening in our community as the Venezuelan community here reacts to this.